Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon session. I am Kaushik and I am from 2nd MBA. We invite our Chief Patron, Dr. Shivaji Babu Garu, Principal of PVPSIT, and our resource person, Professor Rajesh C. Jampala Garu, and Dr. Koner Anuradha Madam, and Dr. Cherkur Srinivas Rao Garu. We welcome you to the afternoon session, sir. Now, our friend Kalki will introduce Professor Rajesh C. Jampala Garu.
Good afternoon to everyone. I am Kalki Srinivas, student of 2nd MBA, Prasad V. Potluri Siddhartha Institute of Technology. I'm feeling privileged to introduce today's honorable guest speaker, Dr. Rajesh C. Jampala Garu. Dr. Rajesh C. Jampala Garu pursued PhD from Acharya Nagarjuna University in 2000, MFT from Pondicherry University in 1999, MPhil from Nagpur University in 1992, PGDCA from Andhra University in 1998. MBA in Andhra University in 1986, BCom from Andhra University in 1984. SAR is having high rich experience, profession position at PB Siddhartha College of Arts and Science, Dean from 2016 to till date. Assistant Director, PG program from 2006 to 2016. Professor in Business Administration from 2006 to till date. Reader in Business Administration from 2001 to 2006. Senior Assistant Professor in Business Administration from 1997 to 2001. Assistant Professor in Business Administration from 1989 to 1997. SAR received many honors and awards and fellowships. CMI Level 5 certification from Chartered Management Institute, UK in 2018. Team Leader in Group Study Exchange Team to Mexico in 2013. Fellow in Computer Society of India in 2009 to 2010. Direct Leadership in Rotary Club, Rotary International Directory. Outstanding Paper Award by UTI ICM in 1999. Thank you, sir, for accepting our request. Now I request Dr. Rajesh C. Jampala Garu to take the session.
Yeah, thank you for your generous introduction. First of all, let me thank the management, the principal of PVP Siddhartha Institute of Technology, Professor K. Shivaji Babu, and MBA HOD and her team for inviting me to be the resource person for this particular training program on awareness of human rights. So on the eve of World Human Rights Day, that is going to be celebrated on December 10th, this particular training program is planned, and I'm very much delighted to be a part of it. First of all, I would like to share my screen. Give me 1 minute. The screen is visible?
No, sir.
Yeah, just a minute. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So actually, the previous resource persons have covered the whole gamut of the issues relating with the human rights. But I would like to base my talk on the human rights approach to the sustainable development. Today, in the morning session, I just listened to the experts. I think Mr. Sri Mukesh ji from NHRC has set the context. Then the very senior advocate, Sri Rajendra Prasad, has raised many pertinent issues relating with human rights. and he questioned the participation of general public and youngsters in the promotion of human rights. So he also raised certain issues like human rights should not be equated with civil rights. Then we had Madam Sarita, additional SP. She has started with the important personalities who propagated the idea of human rights, and she has given the chronological order of when the human rights movement was started. And she covered the constitutional rights, a constitutional framework relating with human rights. So indirectly, they made my job easy to some extent because most of the points were covered. But still, if we try to understand human rights in the last 2 years from the context of short-term perspective, in the last 2-3 years, if you see, the world is facing n number of problems. In the sense like we have seen the issues like COVID pandemic, which became the endemic now, is creating a lot of havoc, and it has increased the division between haves and have-nots, and it also affected the digital divide. Those who are connected with the devices, they're taking the advantage. Those who could not, having the connectivity, are facing the problem. So in that context, the intolerable inequalities that emanated from the pandemic-like situation and the poverty and issues like social media has further divided the societies into many, many small divisions. So coming back to the human rights. So as Martin Luther King Jr. has said, a right delayed is a right denied. That means what? We know the famous saying, justice delayed is justice denied. So that means no human being should be deprived of the human right. Then what is human right? Human right should be equated with humanity. That means the humane approach is required, and this humane approach is to be followed and understood thoroughly, and everybody should have the awareness in terms of what are their rights, not only their rights, but also their responsibilities. So let us try to understand in simple words, what are human rights? So what are human rights? Basically, the question everybody is raising. Human rights are not simply voting rights. Human rights are not simply having a ration card to take some subsidized products from the public distribution system. Then what are human rights? The human rights are the rights inherent to all human beings. That means every human being in the world, in the entire universe, should be covered with the human rights. So regardless of the race, religion, gender, or nationality, or ethnicity, or language, these are all should not divide, or these are all the considerations should not impact who should be given the rights and who should not be given the rights. That means you may be born in Africa or Asia or North America, but every person or every citizen will have their own rights. So, what includes the human rights? This is the next question. What includes the human rights is right to life, right to work and education. So these appears to be simple words, but they're very complex. If you want to address the human rights issue, we have to understand it is such a complex thing, because in the entire universe, if you take, for example, there are around 730 crore population. So human rights should be covered the entire population of the universe. A right to life, a right to liberty. Liberty is what? Freedom. Freedom to express your opinions without fear. freedom from slavery. Still, there are certain kinds of slavery people are facing, and certain kind of people are tortured by the certain categories of people. So freedom of opinions and expression. So if you may have a different opinion, that opinion has to be expressed. Your ideas should be expressed. But whether everybody is having the freedom or not, certain countries we believe they don't have that much freedom of expression, freedom of opinion sharing. So in that way, to some extent in India, people are having the luxury of expressing their own opinions. But the next one, which is very important in the present context, right to work and right to education. Luckily in India, we have right to education. All the primary education in this country, the age group of maybe 8 to 16 or 14, you will be having the right to take the education, free education from the government. At the same time, India is also given a right to work with the Mahatma Gandhi Narega scheme, and even right to food also it is there. So in that way, we have certain structure in terms of providing basic human rights, but human rights consists of many more like economic issues. Suppose if you want to have a social equity or social acceptance, that is also a right. Some social degradation, social exclusion, these are the items people are facing. Even certain rural areas, still people are discriminated to some extent. Such kind of social rights is also a part of human rights. At the same time, political rights. We can contest in the elections without any fear, or you can also vote, as far as your will is concerned. So like this, economic, political, social, even cultural rights must be provided. So everyone is entitled without any discrimination. These rights must be provided. So let us see the regulatory framework or the global framework. Exactly almost 73 years back, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was proposed by the UN General Assembly, which was met at Paris on 10th December 1948. So this particular agreement among all the member constituents is having a binding even today. That means this particular statement or this particular declaration, which was accepted in the UN General Assembly on 10th December 1948, is still valid. So that's why we are celebrating World's Human Rights Day on 10th December. For example, if you come to India, in India we have the National Human Rights Commission. Actually, this particular training program is supported by the National Human Rights Commission. This came into the existence on 12th October 1993 because on that particular year there was an act was enacted in the Parliament that is called the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993, and it was recently amended also. So these are the two basic things. Because we are living in India, we have to understand something about the role played by the National Human Rights Commission. At the same time, because we are a part of global society or global citizen, every person basically a global citizen. So human rights could be addressed if all the governments in the society thinks like a global governments. Suppose just imagine all countries are governed by different rulers. Maybe some democratic countries are there, even certain undemocratic countries are also there. Some dictators are ruling the country still. So in that way, there are certain basic violations of human rights. So my suggestion is all the leaders of the nations must think like a single government. Okay, we can call it as universal government. If there is a collective government, how do they take a decision to protect the human rights? In that way, every leader should think. So this is very much relevant because we are moving towards a globalized society. Globalization doesn't mean expansion of markets to the other countries. Globalization means accepting the difference. So in that way, human rights is based on a principle called equality. So let us see the importance of the 10th December, the World's Human Rights Day. If you see the last two themes of 2020, for example, 2020 theme of the Human Rights Day is recover better, stand up for the human rights. This was chosen because 2020 we had a great suffering because of COVID pandemic. So the United Nations has rightly chosen a theme. That theme is called recover better, because if you want to help others, you should be strong enough. If you want to be a responsible citizen, you should care about your own self first, then stand up for the human rights. So that was an aptly chosen theme for a year called 2020. But the present year's 2021 theme is embarked on the principle of equality. What is equality? Equality is a very comprehensive word. We'll try to understand equality, but if you see the theme is reducing inequalities, advancing human rights. So this is the ultimate statement. That means unless you make everybody equal, unless you advance the rights for the entire mankind, the job is undone. So let me express what is equality. The meaning of equality to me is people should not be similar. People may act differently, but people should maybe speak differently. People may look differently. But equally, that doesn't mean everybody should look similar, everybody should speak the same language. No. Equality means quite opposite. You may be different, you may be appearing different, or your personalities are different, your language is different, your country is different, your religion is different, your race is different, but still we should talk about equality as a principle. That means even though we are all different, still we have to respect others. Respecting the differences of others is equality. So in that way, the Human Rights Day is creating a sense of thinking amongst all of us about how to make the world more a saner world, a more equitable world. So that is the main objective of this particular year's theme. So in the morning also, in the inaugural address, Sri Mukeshji has briefly talked about the SDGs. I think you're all aware of the importance of SDGs. SDG is nothing but Sustainable Development Goals. United Nations has made very clear what are the Sustainable Development Goals. So here you try to understand, everybody is talking about development. Development means what? Normally, development means in economic sense, people will say economic development. But from the societal point of view, if you try to understand what is development, that is nothing but human development. For example, India may be a fifth largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity or some other metrics. But when compared to the Human Development Index, India rank is almost 130. That means there are approximately more than 129 countries which are having a better Human Development Index. So in that way, what the point here is, United Nations has given a clear agenda to the nations that how we should develop, and they have identified 17 developmental goals. We call them as 17 Sustainable Development Goals, seek to realize the human rights of all. So that means human rights are intricately related with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. That point you should understand and appreciate. And 90% of these goals reflect the elements of international human rights and labor standards. So I'll show you the 17 goals so then you can understand. And this particular Agenda 2030, by 2030, the United Nations has given certain targets, and every country should be a part of it, and collectively we should achieve these targets. And everybody should have a pledge, leave no one behind. So leave no one behind is amplifying or mirroring the fundamental human rights principles of non-discrimination and equality. So if you see these 17 goals are not individual. You should not view them as separate. And all these 17 goals are interrelated. All these 17 goals are interdependent. So if one impact the other, if any one of these 17 goals are not achieved, you may not have a sustainable development. Then what is development? So the important question we should ask is development at what cost? Sometimes economic development may make the country prosper in terms of global domestic product. For example, India may, by 2025, the aim of the government is to make India's GDP as $5 trillion economy. That is in terms of rising to the $5 trillion economy by 2025. India may become or achieve that target, but Indians may become poor. At least certain Indians may not take the benefit of these developments. Suppose if you are not sharing the resources, if you are not sharing the outcomes of this development with a large community, with everybody in principle, development is no meaning. So in that way, the sustainable development goals, just go through this list. They're all very much pertinent and they're relating with directly to the human rights because these 17 goals, almost 90% connected with the principles of human rights. No poverty. Poverty should be eliminated. Poverty is the biggest blunder or crime actually. So if a person is born in a particular family, he is becoming poor. That means the society or the governments or the civil society organizations must help the people to come out of the poverty. I think you know the concept called BPL, below poverty line. Sometimes to make the people to come above BPL, some governments are changing the definitions of BPL itself and claiming that they made so many people above the poverty line. So that should not be accepted. So zero hunger. No person should die with hunger. Good health and well-being. Health is different, well-being is different. Today, after this COVID pandemic, people are excessively talking about these two words, health as well as well-being. So we should create such an atmosphere, such a congenial atmosphere, safe atmosphere for everybody. But most of the metropolitan cities, especially you take, for example, Delhi is suffering with pollution, air pollution, and people are affected with lungs because of pollution. So in that way, your cities may be growing, but people's health is deteriorating. So that is not sustainable in the long run. And we are consuming a lot of energy. For example, in this particular 21st century, the biggest problem is not food, but it is energy. So India is importing so much energy from outside in the form of crude oil, and people are consuming electricity or power like anything. The per capita consumption of electricity has increased, so that is putting a lot of pressure on electricity production. Most of the electricity plants are using thermal power, and there is a huge pressure on thermal power stations. So in that way, this is not sustainable because the coal is exhausted, will be exhausted. So we should talk about renewable energy sources. But relating with educational institutions, quality education, to some extent, quantity we achieved, but still in higher education in India, only 26% as per the GER statistics is concerned. Gross enrollment ratio of the students in higher education is only 26%. What does that mean? That means the eligible candidates, especially in the age group of 18 to 24, they should be in the higher education. But only 26% of the Indian population are in that particular age bracket are studying higher education. In the national education policy, the government recently announced in the last year, they are having a target of 50% global gross enrollment ratio in higher education. That is about quantity. Then what is quality education? How many graduates are employable? How many graduates are having the confidence? How many graduates are having the capacity to start their own industry? How many graduates are having the capacity to think what they learn in the classroom? So this is quality. So we have to make a concerted effort in terms of enhancing the quality. Gender equality. Luckily in India, first time, the women are dominating the men. The last month statistics, if you see, in India, more women are there than the men. So in that way, but whether all the women are having the equal opportunity, equal pay and equal opportunity to get the jobs. So this is an important question. So in that way, gender equality at a global level has to be addressed. If 50% of women are not given the fair chance, you are working in a suboptimum level. That means you are not optimizing your resources. You are not optimizing your manpower resources to the fullest extent because you are not giving equal opportunity to the women. So this is the issue we should understand. So like this, if you see the clean water and sanitation, maybe Swachh Bharat movement to some extent created an impact in the mindset of the public, at least to be maintaining some cleanliness in and around. But water is the biggest problem. In future, people will fight for water. Our states are fighting now. In future, countries will fight, or in future, neighbors will fight for the water. So affordable and clean energy. We are talking about green energy. We are talking about e-vehicles. These are all good concepts. At least the mindset has changed recently. The automobile sector is forcibly to shift to the e-vehicle model. But e-vehicle itself is also having its own problem because power has to be generated only through thermal source. So that will e-vehicle consumption will consume power, but the power is produced by thermal, so you are not saving much. So in that way, if the power is produced by using a nuclear or a hydro or any other means or solar, then to some extent e-vehicles will reduce the pollution. So like this, if you see the decent work and economic growth. So growth in terms of economic prosperity is also required because everybody should have some means to live in terms of money and in terms of decent work environment, congenial work environment, industry innovation and infrastructure. So this will play a key role in productivizing and giving an opportunity for others to share their ideas. Innovation is nothing but making the difference which should be reachable or scalable, the difference to create some betterment to the others. So in that way, that innovation mindset may help to make our societies more inclusive, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities. So how many cities are sustainable on their own? So if you go back to the history of Mahatma Gandhi's principle, Gram Swaraj. Gram Swaraj is talking about what? Every village should be self-sufficient. So it is the highest form of self-reliance. But today, that is a very difficult thing. No city, no village is self-sustainable. Forget about the country. So in that way, the government has recently started Atmanirbhar Bharat. The concept behind Atmanirbhar Bharat is what? Atmanirbhar Bharat is talking about self-reliant India to some extent. Regaining your own glory by making yourself strong. How we can be strong? Food sufficiency, energy sufficiency, and best indicators in terms of health, sanitation. These are the things we should concentrate. So responsible consumption and production. So this is very important because in certain kind of discrimination which is not observed, which is not reported technically, It is still there in some countries. For example, in villages, power cuts are there. In cities, there is no power cut. That means what? You are treating villagers separately, urbanites separately. So that is what basic violation of human rights. So you should be responsible in terms of consumption. That means honestly you should not spend, honestly you should not waste the resource. Even though you are a rich person, you have money, you should not waste the food, you should not waste the energy. So that kind of things will help to make everybody to share the resources in a more equitable way. For example, if you see the biggest threat for the mankind is climate, people are talking about the ozone depletion or global warming. These kind of things are making untimely floods or famines or calamities. So climate has to be protected. So in the same sense, life below the water, life on the land, these are all other issues. Suppose if you don't protect your seas, all the flora and fauna and the fish will die. So that is also creating a lot of problem. Sea levels will rise. Sea levels will rise, it will submerge the entire world. So life on the land, it should be greener, safer, healthier. At the same time, you should also talk about peace, justice, and strong institutions. So what kind of peace we are having? Suppose if you are living in Andhra Pradesh, we are very happy. But if you are in the border states, you will be knowing the importance of the peace, because neighbors will fight, and if you are in the border states, you are facing the bullets. So the peace, the meaning of peace, if you are living at the border areas, is totally different. So like this, partnerships for the goals. Ultimately, if you want to achieve all these collective sustainable development goals envisaged by United Nations, we require strong partnerships among the countries, multilateral agreements. We should respect the other country's sovereignty. We should respect the other countries' needs, and we should support them. We should take the help from them. So these are the issues. For example, if you say the present year's issues relating with World's Human Rights Day, there the theme is embarked upon rebuild better, fairer, greener. That means if a human rights is based economy, if the economy is based on human rights, you can break the shackles of the poverty. So you just try to understand, if the economic development based on the human rights, the poverty can be eliminated. So we are talking about rebuilding fairer. Rebuilding fairer means, fairer doesn't mean the complexion. Fairer means equality. That means everybody should be given a fair chance. For that, you require a new social agreement, new social contract. That means society should have a binding, because we are all living in societies. Even though you are living at your own place, but you are a part of a society. The society should also have a binding. So in that way, especially in the COVID times, if one person is affected with the virus, it will impact the entire society. So that is how we should follow the basic norms which is given by the social contract. And the youngsters, for example, they should be given equal opportunities. I mean, here there is a division. Some haves and have-nots. Those who are having digital connectivity, those who are not having digital connectivity, those who are having some basic education in the right schools, are taking advantage of the developmental goals. But as a country, or as a nation, or as a government, or as an individual, we should have some sense and sensibility in terms of creating equal opportunity for the youngsters. And you see the vaccine inequalities and injustice. Certain countries book the vaccines in advance because they have the money, and certain countries are deprived of vaccine. Suppose India also imported some vaccines, exported some vaccines. India has taken certain lead. So in that way, that should be the collaboration. But most of the countries, most of the so-called advanced countries, they book the vaccines in advance, they hoarded the stock. depriving the right for the other countries to get vaccinated. Such kind of inequalities are the gross violation of human rights. Advancing the right to a healthy environment and climate justice. That's why recently we had a meeting, COPA 2020. So they had an agreement to reduce the pollution levels, and there is a lot of fighting going on between developing countries and developed countries as far as how to calculate the amount of pollution they can create. Advanced countries are talking about, in absolute terms, countries like India are talking about per capita pollution output. So like this, there are certain metrics people are always fighting. This should not be the case. If you want to make the entire world a saner place to live, and if you are having the principle of live and let live, then we require thorough understanding, acceptance, and collaboration and cooperation. And we should also reduce the conflicts, unnecessary wars, conflicts among the regions, conflicts among the countries, creating a lot of problem. People are traveling from one continent to the other continent. And most of the people wants to go to the Europe, but the European countries are closing the borders. At the same time, most of the people wants to go to US if the visas are given. So they're sealing the borders. And there is a wall between Mexico and US. So certain presidents are insisting that there should be construction of a wall between two countries. But if you try to understand a global society, there should not be any walls between the countries. So that is how we should build the relationships, build the friendships, build the international cooperation, accepting the differences, respecting the other people's opinions. For that, we should all be humane in our approach. And it should also build resilience. Resilience in the sense like we should be strong enough to face the adversities. Because COVID has tested many. It has tested the health sector. It has tested the government machinery. It has tested certain industries. And most of the people suffered. But certain other industries got some learning lessons. And they came up well with different alternative plans. So in that way, every crisis is an opportunity to make human relations or human rights a possibility. Through equality, through inclusion, you should create human rights. So let me finish by showing this particular model. So just go through this particular model, which was given by V Institute. So what is the key important thing here? We require a sustainable human security. So this is a very loaded concept. Sustainable human security means what? The human security must be sustainable in the long run. What is sustainability? You have to meet the present day's needs, but not sacrificing the future's safety. Suppose that's why there is a saying, politicians thinks about next election, statesmen thinks about next generation. Sustainable human security means we have to make available things for the present generation without making any inconvenience to the future generations. So in that way, sustainable development, the ultimate objective is sustainable human security. Human security, suppose if you see those 4 circles here, human survival. Survival means what? Freedom from fear. But most of the people out of 700 crores, almost 400 crores people in the bottom of the pyramid, they are having the fear. Even certain countries like in Africa, they didn't have the food supplies. They didn't have the medical supplies. So in that way, you see, we call them as freedom from fear. Human development, freedom from want. So this is the ultimate statement actually. Human development means you should be free from the wants. But technically speaking, wants and needs are unsatiable. If one want is finished, the other want will come. That's where the economic development is talking about. That's where the business organizations are making money. People's wants are unsatiable and business organizations are satisfying them and making money. But actually, technically speaking, the human development means a person should develop and he should achieve the freedom. Freedom is the most costliest word. Freedom from the want, freedom from the need, freedom from the fear, and human dignity. What is meant by human dignity? Freedom from the shame. That means whether we are treating or we are respecting the dignity of the other, dignity of the labor, dignity of the woman, dignity of the children. So that is dignity. Dignity is so important because you should give the respect, give the equal opportunity, treat them as human beings. That's why I told you in the beginning, we should be humane in our nature so that most of the human rights automatically achieved. But everybody, out of selfish reasons, out of greed and fear, they are hoarding lot, they are saving more, they're not sharing actually. So this is what creating a lot of problems. So human sustainability. For example, what is meant by human sustainability? Freedom from vulnerability. We are vulnerable for the climate problems, vulnerable for the poverty reasons, vulnerable for lack of medical facilities, lack of access to the information, lack of access to the quality education. These are all different problems. So if you have a freedom from these, human sustainability could be achieved. In the sense, the driving force to make the sustainable human security depends upon the external factors. So I'm not discussing all the factors, but you see cultural diversity, human rights, equality and fairness, democratic participation, decent work environment. These are the basic things which will drive certain factors. And economic security, food security, health security, education security, environmental security. If you could achieve all these things, development will be sustainable. Personal security, community security, political security, national security, and public security. So one will impact the other. Human rights-based approach, sustainable capacity development. So this is what we should think about. Human rights are nothing but the basic rights. Human rights are treating everybody safe, giving everybody an opportunity. So if that is there, it will develop the capacity to develop in a sustainable manner. So ultimately, the last question I would like to raise is, where after all do universal human rights begin? Where the human rights will begin? I'll pause a moment, just think, where after all do universal human rights begin? It will begin very close to you. Neighbor, your neighbor are safe or not, your colleague, or your, suppose if you see this statement given by Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt is the first former first lady of US who is a strong proponent of human rights. She has given a beautiful statement. If you read that statement, you will understand. In small places, small working places, in your neighborhood, small hamlets, small villages, where media is not covered, where reporting is not done, if the human rights are protected, then we can say we are in the right direction. In small places close to your home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Most of the cities, villages, countries are unidentified in the world map because they are not in the news. So in those countries, the human rights must be protected. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have a little meaning anywhere. So human rights should not be discussed only in webinars or seminars or international forums or United Nations meetings, or it should reach to the down level. It should reach to the micro level, unit level. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. So for what we require for this? Without concerted citizen action. She is not talking about government action. She is talking about citizens' responsibility. As youngsters, what is your responsibility towards making human rights possible, universal human rights possible? Without concerted citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world. So it's a very beautiful statement given by Eleanor Roosevelt. She is talking about close to your home. near to your place. You should take care about human rights, then the rest of the things will take care about themselves. So finally, all human, all equal. Everybody is equal. Nobody is superior. Nobody is inferior. That's what, once again, I repeat. Religion, race, color, gender, or language, the place, nothing matters. All are equal. So what the youngsters should do? Lend your name and your efforts to equality. So what is your contribution for the promotion of human rights? Give your name, give your time. You may not have money, but you have energy. You have a resource like energy, or you can spend time, you can be compassionate, you can be lovable, empathy, and you should take care about the elderly people. You should help illiterate people. This is where you can make some contribution. Lend your name and your efforts to equality. Stand up for the human rights for all. Suppose all for one, one for all. Even one person is suffering, everybody should stand. If all people are suffering, at least one person should raise the voice. Stand up for human rights for all. And leave no one behind. Leave no one behind. That means if you want to develop, if you want to have a sustainable development goals, go along with everybody. It's not like a running race. You have to win a 100-meter dash or a 50-kilometer marathon. Human rights, nobody should be left behind. Nobody should be left behind in the sense, if even one person is deprived of human rights, the purpose of promoting human rights is not taken care of. So the right of every man are diminished when the right of one man is threatened. So even one person's right was diminished or reduced, the right of the other man's will also be threatened. So with this, I'll stop here. But the ultimate thing is, laws are there, organizations are there, institutions are there, some awareness campaigns are there, but that it should go to the mindset of the youngsters especially, because the future belongs to you. If the world is not saner, beautiful, greener, fairer, you will be deprived of so many facilities. So in that way, understanding human rights, especially on the occasion of the World's Human Rights Day, is definitely an important thing, because it will sensitize all of us to be more humane in our approach. And with this, I am closing my presentation. And ultimately, you answer this question, because being a teacher, I should ask some questions. What is the question here? What are human rights? Short answer. Can anyone give me the short answer? Yeah, I am giving the answer, but try to understand this statement, then we will close the session. Human rights are the basic rights and freedom that belong to every person in the world, from birth until death. From birth to death, every person in the world should have the basic rights and freedom. So this is a basic core issue of human rights. These rights are based on shared value. Shared value means everybody should have a shared concept, sharing of opinion, shared vision, shared values. What are shared values? These are all universal values: dignity, respect, fairness, equality, independence. So you should respect all these shared values, then automatically human rights will be achieved. These values are defined and protected by the law. That's what I told you. Law is there, institutions are there, but implementation lies with the concerted citizen action. So being citizen of this global world, we should take some concrete efforts, put some good efforts to make other person believe in his opportunity. Ultimately, the human beings must be given an opportunity to rise to their self-actualized state. The ultimate statement of human development is a person should be given an opportunity. I stress on the word equal opportunity to realize the persons to the next extent of realizing the person's self-actualized state. reaching self-actualized state is not that easy unless he is given an equal opportunity. With this, I thank the management of PVP Siddhartha Institute of Technology for making me a part of this particular training program. I hope it served the purpose to some extent. And with this, I'm closing the session. Over to you, organizers.
So, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable session. And you have covered all the important aspects of human rights and especially the 17 sustainable development goals, sir. Like out of which quality education, gender equality, affordable and clean energy, innovative mindset and economic perspective, all these things are very important for the human rights, especially for the economic development, sir. And we request you to stay connected, sir. Thank you for accepting our request and giving your time. So now I request our Honorable Principal Dr. K. Shivaji Babu Garu to deliver a few words to the students. Over to you, sir. Now I request our Honorable Principal Dr. K. Shivaji Babu Garu to deliver a few words to the participants.
రాజేష్ గారు నమస్తే అండి.
Namaste, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Sorry, in the morning session I could not participate because of some other meeting and some technical problem is also there because of that. And actually I want to tell the students one thing, because no doubt you should know about the rights, human rights, but at the same time, if everybody is whatever the profession you may be there, maybe a student or faculty or whatever profession it may be, along with rights, if you know the responsibilities, then I think it may be appropriate. Then you can fight for anything. So if everybody is responsible, and there may not be need for fighting these human rights. That is my personal opinion. I hope definitely everyone should have a right for the basic things and other things. In morning also in the section, Shankar Rajendra Prasad, other members also might have talked about all these things. But my sincere suggestion to all the students is, you be responsible. So whatever the position you are going to occupy in the coming years, so whenever you are responsible, definitely the things, the rights issue may not arise. That is my personal opinion. With this, I want to thank the organizers. Thank you very much, Rajesh garu and Adilakshmi garu. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your words. Now I request student of second MBA Sahitya to introduce our resource person, Dr. C.H. Srinivas Rao Garu. Over to you, Sahitya.
Good afternoon, one and all. I'm Sahitya Chuturi, student of second year MBA, PVP SIT. With utmost pleasure, I would like to introduce Dr. Cherukuri Srinivas Rao Garu, MA, LLM, PhD. Currently, sir, working as an assistant professor at Srimati V.D. Siddhartha Law College, Kanuru, Vijayawada. Sir was born in Idupalapadu village, Inkolu Mandalam, Prakasham district on 5th June 1971. Sir completed his BCom at JKC College in Guntur, MA in Public Administration from Andhra University. Sir has done his LLB from SVD Siddhartha Law College, LLM from Acharya Nagarjuna University, and done his PhD from Acharya Nagarjuna University, Guntur. Sir has 20 years of rich experience in teaching and also published around 10 articles in national and international journals. Srinivas Rao Garu is also a member in Board of Studies in Krishna University. Thank you, sir, for accepting our request. Over to you, sir.
So good morning to all of you. So today we have discussed what is the mechanism for the enforcement of human rights. So mechanism for the enforcement of human rights in India. So the protection of human rights. For that purpose, the government of India in the year 1993, they bring one enactment. That enactment is called as Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. So this enactment provide mechanism for the enforcement of human rights. So what is the mechanism provided under this statute? One is National Human Rights Commission. The second one is State Human Rights Commission. The third one is special courts. They are constituted special courts under the Protection of Human Rights Act. So first one is National Human Rights Commission. The second one is State Human Rights Commission. The third one is special courts constituted under the Protection of Human Rights Act. So before going to mechanism, now we should understand what is the definition, the word human rights defined under the Protection of Human Rights Act. Section 2D of the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993 define what is human rights. So human rights means a right relating to life, liberty, equality, and dignity of the individual guaranteed under the Indian Constitution and are embodied in the international conventions and enforceable in courts of law is called as human rights. Now, the word human rights did not define by any statute. They did not give any definition, a proper definition. They did not define by any statute, but the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993, Section 2, subsection D, Section 2D of the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993 define human rights. So human rights means a rights relating to life, liberty, equality, and dignity of the individual guaranteed under the Indian Constitution are embodied in the international covenants, and enforced in Indian courts, enforced in court of law is called as human rights. So now the human rights, there is a mechanism provided under this statute. There are three types of mechanism provided under this act. One is National Human Rights Commission. The second one is State Human Rights Commission. The third one is Human Rights Courts. Now we have discussed. So who are the members of the National Human Rights Commission? So the chairperson and other members. One is the chairperson who has been the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, appointed as the chairpersons of the National Human Rights Commission. Next, one member who is or has been the judge of the Supreme Court, appointed as member of the National Human Rights Commission. The next, another member, one member. So who is or has been the Chief Justice of the High Court, may be appointed as member of the National Human Rights Commission. Next, two independent members were appointed. Generally, who may be appointed, who has been knowledge, experience in the field of human rights. Those persons were appointed as members of the National Human Rights Commission. Now, how many members are there? One is the chairperson. There are 4 members. The total strength of the commission is 5. So not only these 5 members, and additionally 6 members were nominated, shall be deemed to be members of the National Human Rights Commission. First one is chairperson, other 4 members. 1 member from the judge of the Supreme Court, 1 member from the Chief Justice of the High Court. There are 2 independent members who having practical experience and knowledge in the field of human rights, those persons. The next one is Section 3 of the Protection of Human Rights Act specified some of the members, chairpersons, shall be deemed to be members of the National Human Rights Commission. So who are the members of the National Human Rights Commission? Some chairpersons means. So chairpersons of National Commission for Backward Classes, chairpersons of the National Commission for Minorities, the chairpersons of the National Commission for Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes, so chairpersons of the National Commission for Women, the chairpersons of the National Commission for Protection of Child. So the next one, commissioner. So chief commissioner of persons with disabilities, So these members shall be deemed to be members of the National Human Rights Commission. So now, how many members are there in the National Human Rights Commission? There are 11 members. 11 members were constituted in the body National Human Rights Commission. First one is, who is the chairperson? The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has been appointed as the chairperson. The second one member, who is the judge of the Supreme Court. The another member, who is Chief Justice, who has been the Chief Justice of the High Court. The next one is 2 independent members. So who are the independent members? Who having practical experience and practical knowledge in the field of human rights. Those persons were appointed as members of the National Human Rights Commission. And in addition to these 5 members, the chairpersons of the different national commissions. The chairpersons of the different national commissions means National Commission for Backward Classes, National Commission for Minorities, National Commission for Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes, National Commission for Child Rights, the next National Commission for Women, the Chief Commissioner for persons with disability. So these 6 chairpersons shall be deemed to be members of the National Human Rights Commission according to Section 3 of the Protection of Human Rights Act 1996 clearly specified. So now, how many members are there in the National Human Rights Commission? There are 11 members constituted National Human Rights Commission. The next one, who are appointed these chairperson and members? So there is a selection committee. So the selection committee appointed the chairperson and members of the National Human Rights Commission. So who are the members of the selection committee? Who is the chairpersons of the selection committee? So the chairpersons of the selection committee is Prime Minister of India. The Prime Minister of India is being the chairpersons of selection committee. The next other members. The other members is, one is member who is minister, who is the Home Minister of Government of India, who is in charge, Minister of Government of India may be appointed as member of the selection committee. The next one is the another member who is the opposition party leader in the Lok Sabha. Who is the opposition party leader in the Lok Sabha? Who is the member of the opposition leader in the Rajya Sabha? Who is the deputy chairpersons of the Rajya Sabha? So these persons are members of the selection committee. So these selection committee make recommendations to the President of India. Basing on that recommendations, the President of India nominated or elected the chairperson and members of the National Human Rights Commission. Now, who are the members of the National Human Rights Commission? Who are selected? The members and chairpersons of the National Human Rights Commission. The next one, what are the functions and powers of the National Human Rights Commission? What are the functions and powers of National Human Rights Commission. So, Section 12 of the Protection of Human Rights Act, Section 12 of the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993 clearly specified the functions of the National Human Rights Commission. The first and foremost function, there are 10 functions of the National Human Rights Commission. The first and foremost important functions of the National Human Rights Commission is the National Human Rights Commission may conduct inquiry on suo motu or a petition received by National Human Rights Commission from the victim, or on behalf of the victim, any person may send an application. So what is the first and foremost important functions of the National Human Rights Commission? The first and foremost important functions of the National Human Rights Commission is the National Human Rights Commission to conduct inquiry. So the National Human Rights Commission to conduct inquiry with relating to violation of human rights. So with relating to violation of human rights on suo motu or on receipt of an application or petition, or a receipt of petition or application by the victim or any other person may forward an application to the National Human Rights Commission on behalf of the victim with relating to violation of human rights or abatement thereof, or if any public servant acted negligently at the time of discharging of his duties, he may acted negligently. So against those persons, if any petition or application received by the National Human Rights Commission, the National Human Rights Commission may conduct inquiry. Now, how the National Human Rights Commission may conduct inquiry? The National Human Rights Commission may conduct inquiry on suo motu, sometime on suo motu, sometime on receipt of the petition or application by the victim, or a petition received on behalf of the victim with regarding to violation of human rights, with relating to violations of human rights or abatement thereof, or where a public servant acted negligently in preventing and protecting human rights, where a public servant acted negligently in preventing and protecting human rights. Against those public servants, if any complaint may be received by National Human Rights Commission, then the National Human Rights Commission may conduct inquiry. How the National Human Rights Commission may conduct inquiry? The National Human Rights Commission may conduct inquiry in this regard. If any investigation is required, if the National Human Rights Commission can feel any investigation is required, so the National Human Rights Commission directed any central government or state government agencies, investigation agencies, that is CBI, CBCID, so intelligence police, law and order police, so any one police organization. The assistance of police organization was taken by National Human Rights Commission for conducting of inquiry. So the CBI, so the National Human Rights Commission directed the CBI to conduct investigation with relating to a complaint received by National Human Rights Commission for violations of human rights, or abatement thereof, or a public servant acted negligently in preventing and protecting human rights. Against these persons, the National Human Rights Commission may direct any agency, central government agency, whatever may be, whether it is central government or state government agency, it may directed to conduct investigation. So not only to conduct investigation, and also it may directed to submit the report within the stipulated period. It may be specified by the National Human Rights Commission in his direction. The next one is the next function of the National Human Rights Commission. The first one is inquiry. The second function of the National Human Rights Commission is any proceedings pending before the competent court with relating to violations of human rights, the National Human Rights Commission can interfere the proceedings of the any court, subject to prior permission obtained by the National Human Rights Commission, and then the National Human Rights Commission can interfere and submit a report to a competent court to decide whether any fundamental rights are violated or not in this regard. First one is inquiry. The second one is interference of National Human Rights Commission. The third one is the National Human Rights Commission visit. The National Human Rights Commission visit any institution which is used for detain the persons in particular institution. So for illustration, visit the jails, where the child homes, juvenile homes, it may visit by National Human Rights Commission, and National Human Rights Commission may submit a report before the Parliament. You can lay down a report before the Parliament with regarding to violations of human rights, where the institutions run under the central government or state government, whatever may be, where the person detained for the purpose of reformative or punishment institution, whatever may be. The third one is the National Human Rights Commission to review the safeguards provided under the constitutional law. So the next function of the National Human Rights Commission is to review the safeguards provided under the constitutional law, whether these safeguards provided under the constitutional law, so they can implement it effectively, they are protected effectively, the human rights are not. In this regard, the National Human Rights Commission make recommendations to the Parliament for effective implementation of those constitutional provisions specified in the constitutional law. The next one, the next function of the National Human Rights Commission, the National Human Rights Commission to review the factors of terrorism, to review what are the factors for the terrorism, how the eradicate the terrorism. In this regard, the National Human Rights Commission make recommendations to the Union government. So in this regard, the National Human Rights Commission make recommendations with regarding to review of the factors of terrorism, The next one is the National Human Rights Commission may conduct research. The National Human Rights Commission may conduct the research with relating to human rights and propagate the human rights among the people. So you can create a propaganda, the human rights, you can create a propaganda among the people, and you can conduct different way of methods to demonstrate to create legal literacy, human rights literacy among the persons. The next one is the National Human Rights Commission may examine the international conventions. The National Human Rights Commission may examine international conventions. So now you can understand what is the meaning of international convention. The word international convention, it may defined by the Protection of Human Rights Act, Section 2E. Section 2E of the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993, it may define what is the international convention. International convention means ICCPR and ICESCR. ICCPR means International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, 1966, and International Convention on Socio-Economic and Cultural Rights. International Convention on socio and economic, socio and cultural rights. And any convention adopted by United Nations General Assembly, any convention adopted by United Nations General Assembly, United Nations General Assembly. So those conventions, it may be specified and notified in the Gazette. So those conventions are called as international conventions. So international conventions means one is the ICCPR, International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, and the second one is ICESCR, International Convention on Economic, Socio and Cultural Rights. Socio and cultural rights. These are the international conventions. And any convention adopted by General Assembly of the United Nations, General Assembly of the United Nations, those conventions, it may be notified in Gazette. Those conventions are notified by the Government of India by his Gazette notification. Those conventions are international conventions. So those international conventions is becoming a part and parcel of our municipal law, where so India is becoming one of the signatory country on any particular convention. So particular convention means the United Nations organization, they can bring several conventions. One is ICC, first one UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. The second one ICCPR, International Convention on Civil and Political Rights 1966. The third one International Convention on Economic, Socio and Cultural Rights 1967. The next one CEDAW, Convention on Elimination of Discrimination against Women. So Convention on Elimination of Discrimination against Women 1974. This convention brought by the United Nations General Assembly in the year 1974. Next, CAT. So Convention Against Torture. So 1986, this convention brought by the 1986 CAT, Convention Against Torture. The next, Convention Elimination of Racial Discrimination. This is one of another convention. The next one is convention with relating to migrant laborers. So there are several conventions were brought by the United Nations General Assembly. If India is becoming one of the signatory on that convention, then those conventions should be implemented in India. So that means that international convention is becoming a part and parcel of the municipal law. So part and parcel of the local law. So according to Article 253 of Indian Constitution, there is specific provision where the India, they're entering into any international conventions and treaties or agreements. So those agreements and treaties, it becoming a part and parcel of our local law. According to Article 253, there is a specific article provided where the Indian sovereign may enter into any international conventions, treaties or agreements. So those treaties, agreements are becoming part and parcel of our constitutional law. So becoming a part and parcel of our municipal law. So now we have discussed the functions of National Human Rights Commission. The first and foremost important convention, first one is inquiry. The first function is inquiry. So National Human Rights Commission may conduct inquiry. The second one is the National Human Rights Commission may interfere in the proceedings of any proceedings pending before the competent court with relating to violation of human rights. With the permission of the same court, the National Human Rights Commission can interfere. The next one is National Human Rights Commission visit. The next, National Human Rights Commission review the safeguards provided under the constitutional law. So review the what are the factors for terrorism. Those factors will be reviewed by the National Human Rights Commission. The next one is research with relating to human rights. So human rights literacy. The National Human Rights Commission may conduct study research in the field of human rights. The next one is the National Human Rights Commission make several recommendations to the Government of India for implementation of human rights effectively. So, for the implementation of human rights effectively, in this regard, the National Human Rights Commission may submit several reports to the Government of India. So, finally, the National Human Rights Commission may submit annual report before the Parliament, laid down before the Parliament with regard to relating to what are the recommendations made, how the National Human Rights Commission for effective implementation of those recommendations were given, they are laid down before the Parliament. So first one is the National Human Rights Commission. Who are the members of National Human Rights Commission? What are the functions of National Human Rights Commission? The next one, what are the powers of National Human Rights Commission? The powers of the National Human Rights Commission, just like as a civil court, what are the powers vested? What are the powers vested to the civil court under the Civil Procedure Code? What are the powers vested to the civil court under the Civil Procedure Code? The same powers vested to the National Human Rights Commission. National Human Rights Commission. So first one is functions of National Human Rights Commission. The second one is powers of the National Human Rights Commission. The National Human Rights Commission may conduct inquiry by way of issuing of the summons, just like as a civil court. What are the powers vested to the civil court? The same powers vested to the National Human Rights Commission. The National Human Rights Commission so may receive evidence on affidavit form, on affidavits, received evidence in the affidavit form, may receive the statements, recorded the statement from the witnesses, summoning any document is required. What are the powers of the civil court? The same powers vested to the National Human Rights Commission at the time of conducting of inquiry with relating to violations of human rights. The next one is, the first one is National Human Rights Commission. The second one is State Human Rights Commission. The third one is a special court, Human Rights Court, Human Rights Court. So now we have discussed the National Human Rights Court, National Human Rights Commission. The second one is State Human Rights Commission. So State Human Rights Commission, who are the members of the State Human Rights Commission? The first one is the chairpersons of the State Human Rights Commission. So what are the qualifications to be required for appointment of the chairpersons of the State Human Rights Commission? Generally, who has been the Chief Justice of the High Court may be appointed as the chairpersons of the State Human Rights Commission. State Human Rights Commission. The next one member. So what are the qualifications to be required for appointment of the member of the State Human Rights Commission? Who is or has been the judge of the High Court, or who is or has been a district judge may be appointed as a member of the State Human Rights Commission. So who having at least 7 years standing as being a district judge may be appointed as a member of the State Human Rights Commission. The third one is a female member. A female member was appointed as member of the National Human Rights Commission. What are the qualifications to be required for appointment of the member of the State Human Rights Commission? Who is or has been practical knowledge in the field of human rights. Those person appointed as the member of the State Human Rights Commission. The total strength of the State Human Rights Commission is 3. One is the chairperson, 2 members. These are the strength of the State Human Rights Commission. Now, what are the powers and functions of the State Human Rights Commission? So the State Human Rights Commission, the functions of the State Human Rights Commission, entry 2 and entry 3 of Schedule 7 of the Constitution. Some of the entries clearly specified in entry number 3, entry number 4 of the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution. Some of the subject matters entertained, those subject matters are come within the jurisdiction of the State Human Rights Commission. On the particular subject matter, it may be specified entry number 3, entry number 4 of the 7th schedule of the Constitution. Some of the subject matters clearly specified, those subject matters are come within the jurisdiction of the State Human Rights Commission. The State Human Rights Commission may conduct inquiry, particularly entry 3, entry 4 of the 7th schedule, those subject matters and entertained by the State Human Rights Commission. Other subjects they did not entertain by the State Human Rights Commission. If any complaint or petition received by the State Human Rights Commission, those subjects are not related to State Commission, the State Commission, the same application may be forwarded to the National Human Rights Commission for his inquiry. So, what are the powers and functions of the State Human Rights Commission? Who are the members of the State Human Rights Commission? The maximum strength of the State Human Rights Commission is 3 members. One is the chairperson. Other 2 members are members of the State Human Rights Commission. 1 member shall be a female member. So what are the qualifications to be required for appointment of the member of the State Human Rights Commission? Who has been have a practical knowledge in the field of human rights, or practical knowledge or experience in the field of human rights. Those persons may be appointed as member of the State Human Rights Commission. The total strength of the commission is 3 members. The next one, who may be appointed the chairperson and members of the State Human Rights Commission. There is one selection committee. According to the Protection of Human Rights Commission, there is a selection committee. The selection committee, who is the chairpersons of the selection committee? The Chief Minister of the state is the chairpersons of the selection committee. Other members, 1 member, who is the in charge Minister of the Home Minister. The Home Minister may act as a member of the State Human Rights Commission. The next one is, who is the opposition party leader in the Legislative Assembly? Who is the opposition party leader in the Legislative Assembly? And the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. So these persons may act as a members of the selection committee if this selection committee make recommendation for appointment of the chairperson and members of the State Human Rights Commission. So this selection committee make recommendation to the governor of the state. Basing on the recommendation made by the selection committee, the governor of the state, so those persons were appointed as members and chairpersons of the State Human Rights Commission. The next one, what are the powers and functions of the State Human Rights Commission? So the same powers and functions, just like as a National Human Rights Commission, what are the powers and functions to the National Human Rights Commission? The same powers and functions, just like as a State Human Rights Commission, possessing State Human Rights Commission. The next one is, third one is special court. So a special court, the court is called as Human Rights Court, Human Rights Courts. So section 30 of the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993 constituted a special human rights court generally in each and every district. The district court notified as a human rights court. Every district, generally, the first additional district judge court are notified as a special court under the Protection of Human Rights Act. So it's a special court under the Protection of Human Rights Court. So what are the mechanisms available under the Protection of Human Rights Act? One is the National Human Rights Commission. The second one is State Human Rights Commission. The third one is Special Court. That is, Special Court means Human Rights Court. Human Rights Court notified by the government under Section 30 of the Protection of Human Rights Act. Generally, in each district, the district court notified as a human rights court. In general, the first additional district and sessions court were notified as human rights court in each and every district. So this is the human rights court. So these are the functionaries under the Protection of Human Rights Act. One is the National Human Rights Commission. The second one is State Human Rights Commission. The third one is Human Rights Court. So these are the three mechanisms for the enforcement of human rights under Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. Now, what are the drawbacks of the commission? The main drawback of the commission is the commission has no power to pronounce any judgment. The commission has, just like as a fact-finding commission, this commission only and made a recommendatory to the appropriate government. So the national commission or state commission, both commission, the main drawbacks of this commission is only fact-finding commission. This commission has no power to pronounce any judgment. This commission make recommendation to the appropriate government for implementation of their recommendations. So these are the drawbacks of the Protection of Human Rights Act by the National Human Rights Commission and State Human Rights Commission. The next third one is a special court constituted under the Protection of Human Rights Act, that is called as Human Rights Court. So these courts implemented those Protection of Human Rights Act effectively. So the aggrieved party or victim may approach these authorities for effective remedy provided by this statutes, that is Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. So thank you for giving this opportunity to
Sir, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for accepting the request and coming here to deliver your words to the students. Thank you so much, sir. Now I request student of second MBA Manidipti to formally introduce Anuradha ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Manidipti, student of second MBA, Prasad Potluri Siddhartha Institute of Technology, and feeling privileged to introduce today's honorable guest speaker, Dr. Koneru Anuradha Garu. Dr. Koneru Anuradha Garu pursued degree in Bachelor of Arts from Sarada College, Vijayawada in 2005 to 2008, degree in Bachelor of Laws from Velagapudi Durgamba Siddhartha Law College in 2008 to 2011. Master of Laws in Law of Crimes from University College of Arts, Commerce and Laws in 2011 to 2013. PhD in Laws in the year 2019 on the topic of Assisted Reproductive Technology, Ethical and Legal Issues from the University College, Laws, Arts and Commerce. MSc Psychology from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University in 2019 to 2021. PG Diploma in Human Rights from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University and online course on Indian Constitution from NAL SAR University in 2021. Also have additional qualification as per UGC in AP Set 2013 and CBSE UGC 2015 and also qualification as per APP SSC and July 2018. Ma'am is having his rich experience in teaching at Velagapudi Durgamba Siddhartha Law College, Kanuru, Vijayawada since 1st November 2013 and also working as a guest faculty for the subject Indian Constitution in VR Siddhartha Engineering College since 2018 and PVP Siddhartha Engineering College since 2020. Ma'am published around 33 publications in various national and international legal journals. Ma'am has attended seminars and training programs in state level and national level seminars, including webinars. Up to 1st October 2021, participated and published. Ma'am is serving as a legal advisor and member in internal complaints committee and anti-sexual harassment in committee, PB Siddhartha College of Arts and Science, Mogalraspuram, Vijayawada, VR Siddhartha Engineering College, PVP Siddhartha Engineering College, and serving as a member in the Board of Studies in Faculty of Law in Krishna University since 2020. Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Dr. Koneru Anuradha Garu to take the section. Over to you, ma'am.
Shall I start? Yeah. Namaskar. A pleasant good evening to all. As already introduced, I Anuradha Koneru, presently working as assistant professor in Siddhartha Law College, Vijayawada. I feel it is my privilege and honor to welcome you all for this session with regarding a topic of a brief lecture on human rights in Constitution of India. Friends, before entering into the main topic, I would like to express my deep and heartfelt gratitude as well as the wishes to myself as well as to yourselves and for the all Indians. Because this year we are celebrating Azadika Amrit Mahotsav in the year of 75 years of Independence Day celebration. And also, I would like to express my heartfelt wishes to the all human beings who are maybe wherever they may be. Why? Because within 2 days, that means on December 10th, we are going to celebrate Human Rights Day, International Human Rights Day, which we are going to celebrate. As of course you may know, this particular December 10th, for every year we are celebrating as a International Human Rights Day on the view of United Nations Organization adopted a universal declaration of human rights. And though it is not a right time, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude and thanks to the honorable principal, the organization team of this college, as well as to my beloved principal, Professor Divakar Babu Garu, and also all the student members. And now, let us we enter into the main contents. As already I told you, the main topic is human rights in Indian Constitution. So, for the proper understanding of the topic, we have to divide it in separate parts. They are we can witness in the contents. Number one, what are the human rights, and what is the aim of the human rights? How this particular human rights was evolved, and how this development of human rights concept developed in Indian jurisdiction, as well as how these human rights are so relevant with regarding the Constitution of India, and how our fathers, with regard to the making of Indian Constitution, they embodied human rights under preamble, under fundamental rights, and directive principles of state policy, under other provisions of Constitution. And moreover, it is also important to note that all the fundamental rights are human rights, but in fact, all the human rights are not fundamental rights. Why? Because let us be discussed in the coming session. And also, in last but not least, it is highly important to discuss about the role of Indian judiciary in protection and promotion of the human rights. Why? Because of the main role played by the Indian judiciary, we are nowadays or almost heartfully say that all the human rights are fundamental rights under the Indian Constitution. So let us we start with the first part. What is that? That is that none other than what are human rights. Yes, simply I would like to bring your kind notice that there is no certain meaning and definition with regarding human rights. Simply, human rights denotes all those rights which a person can inherit from the nature itself, and which are indispensable and inalienable, and without which a man cannot live. And moreover, these rights are enjoyed by the people only because of, that means only by virtue of their birth itself. Yes, all we are belonging to the human family, we are possessing these particular human rights. Moreover, these can be enjoyed by the human beings from birth to death without any other consideration except birth, like nationality, color, sex, religion, language, or any other status. Moreover, these human rights will enjoy by the human beings not at the mercy of any state body or any public authority or any person. In simple way, one can say that these human rights can be said as they are a wonderful gift given by the nature for us by giving a birth just like a human being. So I think you may understand the what are human rights. Now let us we enter into the main topic of human rights objectives. In fact, the human rights concept is a dynamic one. Why? Because it is not so simple, so easy to understand what the objective it is. It differs from time to time, person to person, situation to situation. But however, one can understand from the basic aim of the human rights, as rightly said by the Karl Marx, man is born free. But after his birth, he was chained, cribbed, cabined with almost different kinds of disabilities and discriminations. So, in simple, one can say that the main object of human rights is nothing more than that to create an environment or an atmosphere with regarding the enjoyment of the life or fulfillment of the human beings with all comforts like physical as well as the mental enjoyments and well-being. And these particular human rights are enjoyed by the people irrespective of any other discrimination, as already we discussed. And moreover, here I would like to bring your kind notice once again that the nature and the scope of the human rights are not limited. It covers a vast area. It covers from the basic level to the and at most important level. That means the basic right of an individual person is nothing more than that right to life. And also these human rights includes right to life to those that make life worth living, like right to food, right to clothes, right to shelter, right to education, right to health, right to work, right to liberty, right to property, right to reputation, right to clean and green environment, and so on. That means one can say that the human rights objective is from a small area to ultimate biggest area, nothing more than that well-being of the human life. The main aim of the human rights is to provide a well-being for the people to enjoy his life. And now let us discuss about the evolution of the human rights. Generally, whenever we heard about any inhuman treatment or whenever we witness in any inhuman treatment around us, obviously we can utter a word that where we are living. Are we in a civilized society? Yes, obviously it is true. Generally, nowadays we have a thought that the human rights are the hallmark of any civilized and modern society, because of which we have a conception that these human rights may be a new origin and they were created in modern period itself, but in fact not. Human rights is as old as human originated on this earth itself. By, but at the time, he enjoyed these particular rights with his consciousness, ethical values, and with his reasonability. That means he enjoyed his rights along with the nature. But later, because of the selfishness, greediness, and autocratic rules of the kings, and because of the monarchical rules, the humanity was suffered a lot. Because of which, once again, during the medieval period, that means in the 18th century, the human rights got one more important doctrine as the rights of men, as popular as the rights of men. And later, this human rights concept, which we are discussing at present, had got and conceptualized and originated and developed after the Second World War. In fact, all of us, we have to say thanks for the World War One and World War Two. You may have a doubt. What is this, madam? World War One and World War Two are the major and greatest man-made disasters in our history. Yes, obviously. But in this particular World War One and World War Two, the whole world or many nations lost everything almost people, place, resources, in fact, what not. But however, at the same time, it is an era where the humanity was suffered a lot. Here, I would like to remember you one thing. Whenever a person lost anything, then he thought about to rebuild it again and to take it away or to give a rebirth for the same thing. So, in the same manner, after the World War One and World War Two, to protect the humanity and to protect the human rights and to protect the peace at the world, the eminent persons has built League of Nations, United Nations Organization. Yes, United Nations Organization is the one of the key step and which is one of the important key feature in our human history with regarding the development of human rights jurisprudence. Why? Because the UN Charter 1945 established the United Nations Organization, which has adopted in the year 1948 on 10th December Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and later the Declaration of Human Rights 1953, the International Covenants of Civil and Political Rights 1966, International Covenants of Economical, Social, Cultural Rights of 1966. All this has formed a path for the development of the human rights all over the world. And among all of these, the particular Universal Declaration of Human Rights, in short, we can call it as a UDHR. This document contains totally 30 articles itself. These 30 articles embodies almost all the human rights in it. It is the major blueprint or building block for the present nation's human rights laws or human rights conventions treaties. It is a major instrument which help us for the providing a protection for the human rights all over the world with the help of the national laws. And this includes equality, right to freedom, freedom of speech and expression, right to education, freedom from the discrimination, freedom from the slavery, freedom from the torture, and also it recognizes a clean and green environment and to work and having a social security and to form a marriage and to build a family of separate, etc. So like this, it embodied several kinds of rights, a blend of rights. That means a bunch of rights we can see in the articles of this particular UDHR. Now, let us be discuss about how the particular human rights concept developed in India. In India, as you know very well, India has suffered a lot from the 1600 to the 1947. Yes, in this particular period, we are under the crux of the British people, where the Indians, even though they are living in their territory, they suffered a lot and they enjoyed only a second grade citizenship. And also, they are under the slavery. So the freedom fighters thought to remove all the slavery life and to protect the human rights, because of which the particular freedom fighters has worked in two different ways, like a political way and in a social reformative way. In by combining of both the ways, they thought to prepare a constitutional framework for the protection of the human rights, because of which our constitutional makers had taken the influence from the human rights and they embodied it in our constitution. And also, being a signatory country of the UNO as well as the UDHR convention as well as the 1966 conventions and subsequent conventions, our Indian government and our Indian policy makers started to include and also added some of the more important human rights in subsequent laws. So by this way, they included several kinds of human rights in Indian Constitution as well as the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993, the National Human Rights Commission. And here the main discussion with regarding us is Indian Constitution. So here the Indian Constitution is the basic law of the India. That means it is the primary law which governs us. In this particular law, the framers has provided in the first and foremost important preamble the protection for the human rights itself. Now let us see how they protected these human rights in preamble. In the preamble, we can see some of the words. They are, we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into sovereign, socialistic, secular, democratic republic, and to secure all its citizens justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. Justice with regarding social, economical, political. Liberty with regarding thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. Equality with regarding status as well as opportunity. And fraternity for development of the individual dignity as well as to ensure unity and integrity of the whole nation. So among all of these, if we have a keen observation, the framers has provided justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. These are the key points of the human rights. And we also can find the human rights included in fundamental rights under Part 3 of the Constitution. Here, the relation between the human rights as well as the fundamental rights one can witness here. Universal Declaration of Human Rights contain almost 30 articles. At the same time, in our Indian Constitution, Part 3, from Article 14 to 32, we had several other rights. So here, Article 14 to 18, we can find right to equality, and 19 to 22, we can find right to freedoms, and 22, 23, 24, we can find rights against exploitation, and 25 to 28 articles, we can find freedom of religion, and 29 and 30 articles, we can find that the protection for the minority rights. And more importantly, which we can't find in UDHR and which we can find in our constitution is Article 32, by which the constitutional makers has provided a consolidated protection for the human rights in the way of fundamental rights, right to approach the court in case of violation of these human rights as well as the fundamental rights. And now let us we discuss about the human rights as well as the directive principles of state policy relation. Yeah, directive principles of state policy, even though they are teethless provisions in our constitution and they are not justiciable. But here, for the right to work, right to equal pay, right to equal wages, and for getting of the maternity leave, and free from the torture or free from the slavery or in protection of the minorities' rights. All these we can find under the directive principles of state policy itself. But Indian judiciary, by its judicial verdicts, it started to include them into the fundamental rights and try to protect those fundamental rights as human rights. And also we can find a new concept here because of mainly contribution made by Indian judiciary, that is Supreme Court as well as the high courts of the different states. In olden doctrine, we can find all the fundamental rights are human rights, but all the human rights are not fundamental rights. That means if we had a careful, keen observation, we can find only some of the human rights was included under the fundamental rights as well as the DPSP. But by the judicial pronouncements, even though they are not expressly provided under Indian Constitution, impliedly the judiciary has read under the Indian Constitution, because of which it has paved a way for the new concept, which is none other than all human rights are fundamental rights under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution at present. And here I would like to mention one more thing, that is, Supreme Court also provided a teeth for it. Why? Because by the judicial verdicts, the court has provided a protection for the not only the fundamental rights but also the human rights. Why? Because the Human Rights Act, which we already see, it was came into the India in 1993. But prior to that, in the 1950 itself, our constitutional makers has provided a scope for the protection of the human rights under the fundamental right. And also the courts, inspired by the views expressed by our forefathers, they interpreted those human rights under the fundamental rights concept and expressed in the different case laws. Among them, the first and foremost important case is Francis Coroli versus Union Territory of Delhi, where the particular court has expressed that right to live means not merely just like an animal existence. Why? Because life must and should be with a human dignity. And also later, it also expressed that right to privacy. Yes, all we are using nowadays the social media and all we are trying to using these social platforms, but we are not interested to make every private life of ours to the public, because of which the court has introduced a thing that is none other than Aadhaar case. Here, Aadhaar is not compulsory to provide for bank or maybe gas or maybe any government benefits. Why? Because by the Aadhaar attachment, there may be a possibility for the disclosure personal or privacy of the individual person to the others. And in Olga Tellis versus Bombay Municipal Corporation, the court also expressed that this particular right to live includes right to earn livelihood. Otherwise, they may become destitutes and they may become thieves or they may become prostitutes. So, because of which that it is the liability of the government to provide an opportunity to work. And this right to life also includes right to health care. Nowadays, you may see that, for suppose if any accident was happened with within your eyes, we just escape from it because of a legal complications. But here, the court has provided a separate protection for us. That means if we assisted any particular accidented person, then there should not be any kind of legal complications. And also, it also provided a serious duty on the doctors to provide immediate assistance to the needy persons who met the accidents. And here, the right to life also included right to liberty and right to go abroad. Yes, obviously. Right to life means not just merely sitting in a chair or sitting in a home itself. We already witnessed this particular situation in the pandemic period. We always would like to enjoy our life by revolving or by moving from one place to other place. It includes not only within the Indian territory, but also we had a right to go abroad. In Satwan Singh versus Assistant Passport Authority case and in Maneka Gandhi case. And later it also expressed The right to life includes right to get food and right to get water. In Mohini Jain versus State of Karnataka, it also said that right to education is also one of the basic right of the every person. And right to get shelter is, which if we are calling it as a basic necessary for the human beings, it is not only entitled for the citizens but also entitled for the non-citizens. And it also explained about having the polluted free environment, clean and green environment is also one of the major and important human right as well as the fundamental right for us. It expressed that right against the barrier fetters, right to free legal aid, right to speedy trial, right against delayed execution, right against custodial violence, right against public hanging. All these are nothing more than a fundamental rights which are including the human rights. And here, according to my view, the fundamental rights which read or which introduced by the Indian judiciary are more powerful than the UDHR. Why? Because these Article 20 and 21 cannot be suspended even during the emergency period. Why? Because these particular Article 20 and 21 are inalienable and indispensable rights which must and should be possessed by a person from birth to death without any interruption by any state authority. So, according to my view, these particular fundamental rights which are provided under Indian Constitution are having more teeth than the UDHR rights. And finally, you may have a doubt, Madam, why should we know about these particular laws? Yes, let me explain that. Generally, it is an important slogan that ignorance of law is not an excused one. That means by knowingly or unknowingly, we are not supposed to violate any kind of human rights of the any persons. And moreover, only by the way of knowing or awareing of the law, we can understand what is the importance of the law and how we can protect them. And we can use the particular law as a shield as well as the sword. Whenever there is any problem with regarding the violation of human rights, we can use this particular laws as a sword as well as a shield also. And finally, I would like to conclude my session with the aim of the Mahatma Gandhi. He said that it is the dream of the India to establish a society in which there would be no distinction between the high and the low class people. That the women should enjoy the same rights as men, and dignity and justice, social, economical, political, would be ensured to the all the people of India. Yes, my dear friends, by this, one can understand that the human rights are having a universal standard and they are the components of every religion, every caste, as well as the every civilized nation. According to my purview, and according to I agree with the some of the critics. Why? Because in the name of providing protection for the human rights, we also exceeding with regarding the ethical values. In Indian judiciary also recognized the rights of the same gender marriages, living relationship, and adultery issues in the name of fundamental as well as the human right, even though they are ethically violating the philosophy of Indian territory. But however, I would like, if I am not right, if we want to minimize or control or to reduce the violations of the human rights issues, it is not only the duty of the policymakers or policy implementers, but also it is the duty of the every citizen of India, NGOs, and also the media, and also you and me to protect and to have a strong belief with regarding the human rights dignity. And to protect human dignity, we have to uphold and we have to follow the human rights. Thank you. Thank you for giving this opportunity for me. Madam. I think I'm concluded.
Ma'am, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for your valuable words and thank you for accepting our request and coming as resource person. Like as this is a main session. Thank you, ma'am. Now I request student of second MBA Kaushik to propose formal vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kaushik. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kaushik. I'm gonna propose the vote of thanks. We thank National Human Rights Commission for organizing such an excellent training session on the human rights. Then we thank our principal, Dr. K. Sivaji Babu Garu, and our HOD, Dr. P. Adilakshmi Garu, for organizing such training sessions and enlighten us on how to get trained and how to get protected with our rights. We thank Mukesh sir to ignite with us, who has ignited with us the violations people are facing in the various scenarios. We thank Rajendra Prasad Garu for enlightening us with the duties in respect to the students, people, towards society. We thank KGV Sarita Madam for explaining the evolution of human rights from Cyrus Charter and eminent personalities fought for human rights, equality within the people. Then rights with respect to the Indian Constitution. We thank Professor Rajesh C. Jampala Garu for explaining about human rights with context to India and the regulatory framework behind it. Also, the UN Sustainable Goals, futuristic problems that may arise, and explain how human rights-based economy can break cycles of poverty. We thank Dr. Cherukuri Srinivas sir on explaining how commission is constituted, the sections underneath the commission, and explaining the functions of commission along with the drawbacks. We thank Dr. Koneru Anuradha ma'am for intimating about the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav and connecting it to the human rights evolution, development, existence in Constitution of India and role of Indian Judiciary in human rights. Along with that, we thank our student friends and faculty of MBA for making this program grand success. Thank you. Good evening.